All right, welcome back to Real Auto Reports. I'm Jonathan McGrew, and this is the real video, the real review on the 2014 Kia Sorento EX all-wheel drive. We have the Wave Blue here with us today, and it has the 3.3-liter V6 with 290 horsepower. We're gonna hop in, check it out, and let's hit the road and tell you all the details you need to know. Let's go. All right, so welcome back. We are in the 2014 Kia Sorento. This is the EX all-wheel drive, as I mentioned. And, you know, so being the real video, the real review, what we're going to do here is try to tell you all the details that we can to let you know about this vehicle. And the first thing I want to disclose is that being an EX means it's about mid-model range, but what you'll notice about this EX is that it has a lot of the features that the SX would have because it has the touring package. On our sheet, that's a $4,000 upgrade, but if you're looking on the websites today, like I was earlier, that's being disclosed in our zip code here in Colorado around a $4,400 upgrade. So you have to remember that when these cars come out to the press fleets, that the pricing will vary based on what we're given and what the market actually ends up seeing as they adjust pricing. So this vehicle, as tested, is about $36,550, and that does include the delivery charge, the $850 delivery charge. Now, again, that's you might even get one cheaper with deals and incentives and all sorts of things. So what does this vehicle really offer the motoring public? Well, frankly, Kia is still, and we talked about this with our Sportage review, which you can see on our YouTube channel. It's that bright red one from Kia. And we like the Kia brand. We like what they represent. We like this value for the money that you get in a Kia, yet you're not giving up a lot of the luxury features. So let's talk about what you're getting in this vehicle. The first thing I want to point out are some of the features. So let's just go through them real quick. You do have memory seats in this vehicle. We do have the beige leather seating surfaces. Now you can also get a Napa leather if you go all the way up to the Limited, but you will only be able to get 3 exterior colors if you go up to the Limited. So the Wave Blue that we're in today is not available when you get up to the SX and the Limited, which is the top of the line. So with the touring package, you get more color options and a lower price tag, and still get some of the other cool features like the UVO e-services, which is the it's powered by Microsoft in the non-navigation oriented cars, but this one does have the navigation package as part of the touring add-on. And you have the Infinity sound system, dual climate control, which is really nice, and you can sync it for both sides, or you can unsync it, of course. And then you have your CD player. You have this fantastic, as part of the touring package, this fantastic panoramic roof. And it's actually been raining on and off today as we've been trying to film this review. But you can see this goes all the way back behind the rear passengers' heads. Basically, it stops just behind the rear headrest. This is a fantastic glass opening, and from here, you know, it will open and slide back. So it lifts up and slides back. It also will tilt. And if it wasn't raining right now, I would, or sprinkling really, I would show you that. So those are some incredible features. Of course, you also have your Bluetooth with the controls here on the wheel. You have the volume controls for the radio, cruise control, and voice activation for the systems on board. The other neat thing about the Kia Sorento in 2014 is you have an all-new gauge cluster, and the center is all digital, so you can thumb through the Sirius satellite radio, compass, service, user settings, and then the trip computer. And then this button down here, that's actually looks like an arrow or a change symbol. It actually changes the center thing, so you can see the trip. You've got trip A and B, range, average, speed, all sorts of things that you would want to see as you're cruising along, or you might not want to see, but either way, you can change it around. And like I can see that at just above a quarter of a tank here, between half and a quarter, it's saying we have 129 miles of range, and we're seeing about 19 miles per gallon. So that's not bad considering the fuel economy that we're supposed to see in this vehicle, which is around 18 to 25 city highway. So that just shows you that there's a lot of thought put into this vehicle. It also has blind spot monitoring, and it does allow you to fold the power mirrors in with the touring package. They add that option, and that's something that's nice because it doesn't come standard unless you go up to the SX or the limited version. Now, some things that are also really cool that this car has are the heated and ventilated front seats on both sides. They are power seats. The one interesting thing, and I'm going to try to demonstrate this, is it has a tilt feature, but you might notice the whole seat seems to rock as opposed to just the seat cushion and the back separately. So it's sort of tilting the whole chair, and then you kind of have to play with your seat back settings as you do that. Like, it doesn't seem to have as much variability as some of the high-end cars, but they're trying. As I said, Kia is giving you value for the money in this car. So at $36,550, you are getting a lot of stuff in here, including the keyless and push-button start. This does have the power liftgate, again, as part of the touring option, and that touring option is for $400 to $4,400 is a huge value, because you would have to go up to the SX to get those things, and you'd be starting at the same price but in the base model. So then you might have to add some more options. Some other things that I like about this is that it is the all-wheel drive model that we're in this EX. So that coupled to the 3.3 liter V6 with 290 horsepower, this is their GDI engine. And really, I mean, you've got direct injection, and basically what this means is that you have 290 horsepower on tap, which, by the way, is more than the RX 350 F Sport that we tested recently at Real Auto Reports. So again, I'm not saying that you would buy this car over a Lexus, but what I'm saying is that if you're looking for something that gives you a lot of creature comforts and a lot of features for the money, that's where Kia is going to get you. And so that they're going to give you a lot. But we'll cover here in a second where this car really fits in the grand scheme of things, because you really aren't going to compare this to a Lexus. So I talk about this not being a Lexus killer, or it really doesn't compete with the GLK Mercedes that we've tested, and it's not supposed to. You're going to cross compare this to maybe something like in the family, you could compare this to the Hyundai Santa Fe. You could compare this to a Nissan Rogue. That would be a good comparison. And even up to the Murano, because of the packages that are on this vehicle. You could compare this to things like the Durango and the Honda Pilot at the larger end. And because this goes up to a higher price tag, when you get the limited with the Napa leather and the pearlescent white paint, you'll be in that starting at $39,000 mark and going up from there. So that starts to get really expensive in most people's mind for a Kia. So not to disparage Kia, but you're starting to get up to that $46,000 price tag that we saw in the Lexus RX 350 F Sport. Now, this car has features, lots of them, including, I didn't mention before, but it's got these rear sunshades that pull up and hook, like we saw in our ES 350 review, in our ES 300 hybrid. And so, basically, where does this car fit in? Again, it's value for the money. I really think that's Kia's play. They're giving you good quality. The build quality is good on them. You're going to notice a few things. You're going to notice more plastic in these cars. They do there's a little bit of leather wrapping or vinyl wrapping on the side handles here, but otherwise, you've got more plastic than you will in the higher end cars, but it is still nice looking. It's made to look like leather and vinyl. It's not as soft touch as you would like. Even the dashboard up here is not as soft touch as some of the high end cars. But that's okay, because it is meant for people who need a great vehicle that's reliable, has good performance, and makes them feel good. And I tell you what, there's nothing better than this big sunroof. And it's got an infinity sound system that can really let you jam out. You can get a third row option in the Sorento, so that means that, you know, this is really good room in the redesign for 2011, which is really where the big changes happened. But you know, when they did that, they gave people more room. Well, this vehicle in 2014, for the model year that is 80% new. So they're really pushing to give you a lot of value here. And, you know, including the navigation system, it's, you know, 8-inch touchscreen here. You've got, you know, a great transmission. You've got Active Eco, which if driven in a reasonable fashion, the Active Eco will give you better fuel economy than just the standard EPA numbers. You also have right here, you've got 3 buttons. You can turn your park assist off in the middle, Active Eco on the right, and on the left you have your AC. Yes, it has a power inverter in the back of the console here, so you can plug things in directly on a 2-prong power port. Not a 3-prong, but a 2-prong power port. So most of your phone chargers, tablet chargers, some of the smaller game systems, you know, will charge through that. And that is a great option, so that you can do a lot in this car on the go, and your family can too, and it can be family oriented. So what does all this mean? Well, what about the driving experience? You know, we've talked a lot about the features and value oriented and all of this, but does it drive at all well? Well, one of the other nice things about this vehicle is that in 2014, they made the unibody 18% more rigid. So it will be stiffer, it will drive nicer, and with the new engine, the 3.3-liter V6, you have good performance, better fuel economy. Now, the funny thing about that is the 0 to 60 time is about 7 seconds. And I read that also in Car and Driver and a couple of the other really big auto mags. And I thought, okay, that's not bad. The interesting thing is it sounds like it's about 1/10 of a second slower than those same independent tests on the previous generation V6. But you're not going to notice that from a dead stop. And most people would have never noticed that it is different. The thing I noticed is that this vehicle has a lot of pep. Even in Active Eco, it'll get up and go. It doesn't feel as restricted as some of the other Hyundai Kia family models. But if you don't want the V6, you also have a 4-cylinder option with about 190 horsepower. It's like 190, 191. And you know, that's not going to be as lively as this car. This car, I find, I really have to keep an eye on the speedometer, because it really does get going and it likes to cruise. And so that's a nice feeling when you're buying a car and you want to live with it for many years. You want to feel like you've got a lot of power and economy, and just everything blends together nicely. One note on the speedometer, though, is that it is a digital analog speedometer. So it's all digital in the center, but it mimics an analog. So the pointer is even digital as it goes around on the analog numbers. And I find that when I have my sunglasses on, which I don't record these videos with my sunglasses on, but a lot of the times I'm driving with my shades on, and I'll show you in the storage up here, you know, nice set of aviator lookalikes. Because I break them and I don't pay a lot of money for my sunglasses. So when I have my sunglasses on and you have that kind of tinting in the way, the digital readout, even with it turned up, all the brightness turned up, can be hard to read. And I find that I have to kind of double check my speed a lot more, because this car does have a decent amount of power. you know, all in all, some other really cool things about this vehicle is that in 14 you have electric steering now. In the SX, you'll have a variable mode steering, so you'll have a comfort, a touring, and I believe a sport, and it's called flex steering. Because we have the EX with the touring package, we don't have that option. But I can tell you that the electric steering is very smooth. It has a nice center feel. It has good weight and feeling. It's not overly heavy or overly light. It's definitely not a sporty feeling, but it does give you assurance that you know where you're pointing the vehicle when you're steering, and it doesn't feel twitchy. Like, the whole vehicle feels very stable. When you wiggle it around, it doesn't feel like it's goosey on the suspension or in the steering. So I think Kia has done a nice job going from the hydraulic unit that they had before to this electric unit that they have now. And that's a real key thing to watch them develop this vehicle. So, you know, when you test drive, take a look at that. And if you are looking at the SX, try out the flex steering, because it will weight up the steering in different manners to give you a different driving impression. So Sport will have a heavier steering sense so that you get a more crisp and precise turn in when you're going through the twisties. All right, the final thing I really wanted to mention on this is that it does have a power liftgate. I had to look for the button quite a bit because it's here, and a lot of them are down in the center stack or on the left side of the car. So once you find it, you can turn it off, or you can open and close it from the power liftgate button here inside from the driver's seat. Note, you cannot open it in drive. You have to be stationary, and that's a safety feature. But one of the things that Kia has done is the attention to detail. You can open and close the power liftgate from the key fob. And when you press the button on the underside of the back of the tailgate, it will also automatically lift open for you when the power liftgate is turned on. Now, the reason I mention that and why I think that's so significant is that on the RX 350F Sport that we tested and the hybrid, but you could not power open the liftgate by pressing the button on the back of the thing. It would just pop it, and from the key you could only open the liftgate, so you couldn't close it. You had to walk up and press the button, and then they had the button inside that would open and close it. So I think that's kind of interesting as well. Now, in the back, speaking of cargo area, because we don't have the third row, we've got some pretty cool things we need to show you about the interior cargo area and the additional storage you get when you don't have the third row. So let's take a look.
All right, so one of the interesting features about the 2014 Kia Sorento is the storage you get when you don't get the third row option. So this EX we have doesn't have that third row option, and that means if you take this handy dandy carpet out of the way, you get this. And we'll zoom in and show you this, but this is a big cargo area, and if you can kind of see here, I can even kind of get down in the cargo area. So it's pretty deep. Why is it that deep? It's that deep because if you had a third row, that is where they get the extra room. So if you don't get the third row, you get a lot of extra cargo. If you were from the south, you might be able to run moonshine in it.
All in all, I think the Kia Sorento in the 2014 skin is one of the best yet, and I think they will continue to improve this vehicle. Is it up to snuff with a luxury vehicle? Well, I think for a lot of people it is, but if you're looking for, they still call this a crossover. It's grown a lot over the years, and it's hard for me to call this a crossover, but it is not based on a truck frame anymore. It is a unibody frame. So technically, I guess it's a crossover with SUV space and room inside for your passengers and cargo. So we think they've done a good job. There's probably a ton more I could talk about with this car, but for now, that is the real video. We'll do our wrap-up coming up next.
So that's the real video, the real review on the 2014 Kia Sorento EX all-wheel drive. As we said, we have the 3.3-liter V6 with 290 horsepower. You're going to see about 18 to 25 miles per gallon coming out of this motor. And you're going to get a lot of good performance, 0 to 60 in about 7 seconds. Now, that is about a tenth slower than the previous generation V6, according to independent tests like Car and Driver. But you won't notice that in the real world. It does seem to take grades fairly well, although you will notice that this is not a rocket. The thing that is really great about the Sorento, and the thing that we love, is that this facelift, while not fully redesigned for 2014. They say it's about 80% new, and you can really see that they have done a nice job bringing up the class of this vehicle, rounding out the nose, rounding out the taillights, making sure that everything looks like a $36,000 vehicle when you start to get up into these upper ends of the Sorento. Now, you can get a third row option in, and that's pretty cool if you're looking for that once in a while flexibility, but you wouldn't want to go in a road trip in that third row. But when you don't, you get some really cool storage options when you delete the third row option. And this car has memory seats, climate control, navigation, panoramic sunroof with electric shade, something we wish that ES Lexus had had. So what you can see is they're really going after that value luxury for the money. And it is still considered a crossover, yet it's really taking the place of larger SUVs. But in the future, we'll have more real first impressions, more real videos, the real review. I'm Jonathan McGrew. If you're looking for a crossover or SUV that can carry 5 to 7 people, the Sorento is definitely one that should be on your list for 2014.